All right, so welcome to another episode of Adding Perspective with Josh. I'm Josh.
I'm Coach Nrgy.
I'm Aphrodite.
And I'm Emmanuel.
All right, this week we're going to talk about relationships in the toxicity category, So we're going to talk about how some relationships can turn, I guess what you call toxic, into toxic relationships. So to kind of jump into that particular subject, to me, I think that some relationships turn toxic when two people stop respecting each other. I think that seems to happen, when, two people just really start, really just wanting to be disrespectful. And there's varying reasons why, the respect may be lost between two people, especially from a, toxic standpoint. But I think the one that I can kind of think of is if, someone, does something that's like considered very, distrustful, like break somebody's trust, do something that, goes against what the agreed upon agreement was. I think that sometimes that can kind of shift, the relationship dynamic. Mm. But, with you guys, like, how do you think that most relationships turn toxic?
With me, I do think it's because the trust. So I agree with you about the trust being broken, and the disrespect. Because majority of the time, when the disrespect comes, the other person may not be disrespectful, but eventually they turn disrespectful themselves because that's their reaction, right? And sometimes a relationship was just toxic from the start. They shouldn't even got that far, but they did somehow. I mean, sometimes you just know it's not a good thing to get into, right? So I don't know. Maybe they're loving good. So I don't know. I can't tell you what the problem be, but sometimes it's just toxic from the start. Anytime you start off, y'all cussing each other out and being disrespectful and, cheating or whatever the situation is, just crossing boundaries and lines and all that kind of stuff. It's toxic from the start. If it's toxic from the start, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I heard that before, though. That last part that you made, if the loving's good, does it mean that, you stay in a relationship like that?
I mean, I'm not telling you to stay. What I'm saying is what I heard. I just heard it. I'm just telling you what I've heard. Oh, but, the sex good. Okay, but, he's slapping your face at the same time. Well, he can slap your face and have sex with you. Like, I don't get it. But I'm not telling you to stay. Yeah. I don't recommend nobody staying in a toxic relationship. Yeah. But those are the excuses that they give. The sex good. Oh, he take care of me. Or she, I guess because she can be toxic too. So let's just be honest. Women can be very toxic. Mm-hmm. So it could be, they have various reasons why they stay in this toxic relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I was just curious about the last part because I hear it a lot too. It's an interesting reason why to stay, though. I'm not gonna lie. That's very interesting. It is why some people would stay, but
it's deeper than that. Like, let's be honest. You got to be deeper than that.
I would imagine so. I would imagine so. Maybe that kind of can go back towards, like, I guess that person having some type of, personal issues, like maybe not wanting to be abandoned or something.
Interesting. Maybe. Who knows?
Could be a component of that.
It could be. You're right.
Because there has to be certain reasons why people put up with bad behavior.
Well, I think, even when sometimes I think because the behavior haven't been called out on the front end, right? So once that behavior, you see that behavior and you haven't checked the behavior and then you keep allowing the behavior, then it gets worse from that point, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's not so much of, them just allowing it. I think what it is that, especially if they like said, don't do that no more, and the other person might be like, oh, he or she they just saying something because they don't really believe what you're saying. You didn't put no actions, no recourse behind it. It's just like, oh, don't do that no more. So people take people for granted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like there's a lot of complacency happening though. Like a lot of that. Depends on how long you've been with a person. I can kind of get in there. Especially complacency in the way that you treat somebody.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But how about you, Emmanuel? What you think?
I pretty much agree with Aphrodite. I don't have a lot of personal experience or secondhand experience with it. So I just haven't heard a lot about it. But what I have heard kind of aligns with what Aphrodite's saying. I think sometimes boredom in a relationship can trigger it. People just aren't fulfilled. It typically will start with one person, and then the response to an individual's toxicity is to respond with toxicity, and then after that is just the snowball effect. So one person could do something like you were saying to kind of lose trust, or maybe something that rubbed the other person the wrong way. It may not have been communicated. Response to this may be another act that's not beneficial for the relationship. Then toxicity just starts to build and compound, and then before you know it, you just got a toxic relationship.
Yeah, it almost seems like it can just happen overnight, doesn't it?
Yeah. It can.
It seems like it. But we know
the emotions. That's
right, because we know it's built up to. It has built up to that, but I can't imagine it feel like it just like woke up. They probably woke up in a toxic relationship feeling like that.
Right. What's wrong with you? And then literally maybe something done been wrong for the last 2 weeks with this one person, but they may not have expressed it. But now on this particular day, they fed up, and then now other partner is like, what's wrong with you? You acting crazy, you acting stupid. And then they go out there and do something dumb. And then it just starts to compound.
Yeah. Huh. Because that build-up part, I think that's very common, very familiar with people that are in those types of relationships. But how do you think that people get to a point where they physically put their hands on other people? Like, how do you think that people get to that point?
I think it's just a loss of control. It's probably emotion. I'm sure they were in there. It was emotion filled in most cases. We do have instances where some folks just have a violent background, or it may be, have mental things going on that provoke that. But a lot of times it's emotion build up, and then, people respond, they lash out in violent ways at times. That would be my guess.
Yeah. I think so too. Yeah. I think that even if because once it gets to that level, that's like an exit level. Like two people should exit the building quickly, okay? Because no relationship should really elevate to that level where two people are putting their hands on each other. But I think that some people, even not really just putting their hands on each other, nothing like that. But I think that some people get to that point where their emotions are so high that they just start throwing stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like they pick up like just random things and then they just throw it at each other and stuff like that.
It's a reaction. It's like, like I gotta get this out. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like all this bottled up in me just gotta go.
It's so funny because I used to have a joke because I've experienced that. But I used to have a joke where I would call, and it probably didn't help, but I used to call the girl the Hulk because, the Hulk was like a normal person. And then when he got mad, then it's a completely different person, but that's literally how it works. It's almost like a blackout, and then
it is.
Yeah.
It is a blackout.
It's like a blackout, and you just become somebody who's not.
You blank out. You blank out. That's what happens.
Of course, I didn't say that in the moment, but like, you know.
Eventually you did. Yeah, after the fact. Yeah. You had to duck a little bit, make sure you you know what I'm saying?
You know, make a little joke. You know. Yeah.
Lighten the food.
Oh man. That honestly sounds like y'all had to duck some things. That's what it sounds like, right? Like like bob and weave a little bit with that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You know, it happens. It happens.
It does happen.
Oh man.
Also doing business.
Okay.
It happens. You know? It happens.
Yeah, and that's a heck of a cost when you gotta like really just. I mean, seriously, when you got duck stuff, oh yeah, that's a cost right there. Okay, it is. But I mean, I think that sometimes people do that though, is because they run out of words, right? Like they run out of verbal things to actually get a person's attention. So instead of actually continuing to talk through their words, they pick up household items. You know what I'm saying? Like anything that they can put their hands on and just physically just throw it at you. Like sad but true, you know? Like
I think it depends on the person too.
But that's the thing. Like if you get to a point where you have to express yourself physically, you've completely exhausted all of your vocabulary. Like whatever you can verbally say, you've exhausted all of that.
No, I was saying it depends on the person, like picking on household items. Because, yeah, some people know what household items they're going to pick up. They're not just going to pick up certain items.
I know. I mean, you ain't going to see nobody run over and pick up a 32-inch TV and just be like, let me throw the TV.
Oh, no, I have seen that before, but I'm just thinking that's not true.
You've seen people pick up a 32-inch TV and just throw it. Like
TV ain't that bad. TV ain't that heavy. You know, they're not boxes like they used to be. So now folks can pick them up pretty easy. I done seen the TV too, Josh.
Oh my God.
Well, I haven't personally experienced it. You know, I have witnessed, you know, from afar, you know. Yeah. It's crazy, man.
Okay, that's extreme right there. Okay, you picking up 32-inch TV. Anything going 20 inches, oh, you extreme right now. Okay, like
oh yeah.
That's a pretty big household item.
Huh?
So that's a pretty big household item. Okay.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So you was gonna say something?
I was gonna say the thing is, oftentimes after these acts, then it's a remorseful period, right? Yes. And that's something I want to kind of shed light on too, because that's kind of how the toxicity train, you know, it goes violent, it goes remorseful, it goes violent, it goes remorseful, and then that's when you talked about people staying. Some people really buy into that remorse side of things, you know, or they really want to believe it. They really, you know, they may think that the person's really trying, and maybe they just really just, you know, were affected by whatever happened, but that toxic remorse, that's the cycle. And I think that's kind of what hooks some folks in sometimes. They just kind of hope whatever was expressed during the remorse is actually something that, you know.
They really want to believe it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that's a big part of the folks staying sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the psychology of the toxicity right there, okay? That's the psychology right there. It rewires your brain, okay? It do. Like, people you be in such a toxic relationship that like the behavior becomes essentially normal to you. Like this is how we normally act with each other and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what it is. It's normal. It's like, oh yeah, she had one of her episodes. She'll be all right, you know?
Yeah.
Tomorrow should be straight. Then next week happens again.
Yeah. It's just like those people you see on like, you know, out in public and stuff like that. And they having like a level 7 argument with each other. And then it's like normal. It's like they talking to each other like it's a normal everyday thing.
Right. And other people thinking about calling the police or something like that.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, and it's different when I guess individuals might be in that situation, because it's like, at what point do you leave? You know what I'm saying? At what point do you really just try to do something different for yourself? Like,
well, I think that point it has to be it's on the individual person when they tired. When they really sick and tired, because a lot of people say they tired, but they might say it a lot, but it's just something that might click in them, like, I ain't doing this no more, and they serious about it, And sometimes they are tired, but they just, man, I had the resources to leave, especially if the other person is the breadwinner and they not working, especially this day of time, like, if they trying to pay a $2,000 in rent and they can't, and they might have kids involved and they just can't get up and move like that. So it's like, do I stay here in this toxic relationship, or how do I prep myself to actually move? Because it's easier said than done. That conversation is easier said than done, and especially when you're not just moving yourself, but you're moving kids.
That's true.
And you might not have the resources, you might not have the support.
Yeah.
Probably fear starts to creep in too. Well, uncertainty at the very least, and uncertainty breeds fear. So yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah, and that lack of confidence of knowing that they can do it regardless of they with them or not, and how toxic it is, because people could beat you, they words alone could beat you down. Mm-hmm. We ain't even including, the physical part, but words, you ain't gonna be able to make it without me. They said a lot, people say that a lot, you ain't gonna be able to make it without me. So they start believing it. And they start having that lack of confidence that they really cannot make it. Yeah. Or nobody's gonna want you with 5 kids or 2 kids or whatever. So, that type of stuff creeps in, and it before you know it, they believe in everything that's being said.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I often wonder that, even when a person is in that position, how often do they really consider, self to a certain degree, and not just, the kids, and not just the money aspect, and not just these other things, because your own health and your own well-being is vitally important, right? So I think that while a person may be even waiting there in that type of situation, and experiencing that, depending on how long that person's been experiencing that, like whether that's long-term, short-term, or whatever, like that's affecting you as a person. Like your whole thought process is getting affected. Your stress level is probably going up. Your anxiety is probably going up. You're probably not sleeping good. All this kind of stuff. And to a point, that's almost bigger than just money, because sometimes you can't buy your health back. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't repair that once you can, but it just takes a lot longer. And I don't think that people kind of consider that part a lot more than they consider the other stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we live a lot of times, especially as caretakers or whatever, they forget about self regardless. It ain't even got to be a toxic relationship for them to forget about themselves. No. Especially they feel like they got more responsibility on their plate other than themselves. As a parent, the first thing pop in your mind is my. You don't need to say yourself; you say your children. So it's easier. Should we consider self? Yes, we really should. We do need to consider self. It's nothing. It's peace of mind. Peace at all times is priceless. You can't buy peace. You know what I'm saying? So, but until you recognize that you need to be at peace, until you recognize that you have to take care of self. sometimes we just don't recognize as a person that we have to take care of ourselves first, because we cannot take care of somebody else. We cannot see about our children, and we might can see about them, but how truly are we really seeing about them if we're in a toxic relationship? Or we're in that situation? How are we really seeing about them? How much harm are we really doing to them? But in a person's eyes who feel like they can't make it, who feel like, oh my God, this is my end all be all, I gotta stay here for this foolishness. They only see that, man, he or she gonna feed my kids. They'll make sure they have somewhere to stay. That's the only thing they see sometimes.
Yeah, it's the lack of knowing that they have other options. It's the lack of knowledge. It's the lack of just planning and prepping as well to go along with that. As far as why people stay in places that are unhealthy and why they don't put themselves first, even if they're trying to put their kids first, but understanding that by putting your kids first, you're going to put yourself first as well. So it's just lack of knowledge. And that's where a lot of these issues that people deal with just in general, personally, just in life and in relationships, it's because of lack of knowledge. It's because of lack of knowledge. It's because of just not knowing what your other options are. And to some people, they don't even know that they have other options.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to have a difference in lifestyle, even if that means it may not be as great as you may be, currently experiencing it as your lifestyle is right now in this relationship. You have to be willing to, go through whatever changes are necessary, even if it's not as glamorous, in order to take yourself and or your kids out of an unhealthy situation. But a lot of people, for some people, they don't even want to, change the lifestyle. They're so accustomed to how they're currently living and the image and everything that comes with that. So it's the embarrassment part, as opposed to, but your life and your health is way more important and way more valuable. So.
Yeah. Hey, you said a lot right there. You did. That's a good point.
It's deep. It is. All y'all have been saying a whole lot of stuff, and I'm like, yeah, it's just layered after layers after layers on top of everything.
So is there a real way to kind of get off that, I guess, that toxicity train? Like, once you're on that train, is there like a real way to actually get off of it? Right? Like,
it is. It is a real way to get up off that train. But that's something you have to want to do. That's something, at the end of the day, I'm out. Like Nrgy was saying, they need to know they got options. You need to know, okay, so I take this embarrassment today. You need to give two hoots about what the next person gonna say and do what's best for you. It is a way to get up off that train. You just need to know it.
And you got to be comfortable with a little less, because the help, quote unquote, additional support won't be there, potentially, at least from that source. So you got to be comfortable knowing that you might take a step back temporarily as you position yourself to move forward.
And sometimes it's not even a step back, though. I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but sometimes it's not even a step back. See, we consider what we had over there, it might be all this, or it might have been all that. But in all honesty, when you look at the bigger picture, you didn't take a step back. You actually took a step forward to get the heck on to make sure you're good.
Yeah.
So you have to figure that. You have to figure that thing out. Be it, what I'm saying? Sometimes people are scared to tell the conversation in the situation. But sometimes you just have to open your mouth and say, look, this is what's going on with me. This is what I got going on. And let somebody else can give you some options when you don't have those options, when you feel you don't have any options.
Yeah, you got to have courage. For sure. I think some folks know what to do. They just may not have the courage to do it all the time.
Yeah. Fear is a powerful demotivator. It is. That fear thing. What that fear said is, tell you, it prevents you from taking steps forward. It do. And when you're in a relationship or a toxicity relationship like that, there's a lot of fear. Especially depending on like how long you've been in that particular relationship with that person. It's very difficult to, I guess, step out, I guess, on your own per se. And just try to do things by yourself because, I mean, again, that essentially says that you have to step out on your own. Like you have to step out on your 2 feet in order to get there. And I think that sometimes once you've been in a relationship that long, you forget how strong and how powerful you actually are.
That's something that I hear a lot from clients. They'll say something like, well, I don't want to leave because, you know, of all the time that we've put into this relationship or all the time that, you know, I've been with this person. And so they're holding on to that past and that history of, you know, all this unhealthy stuff, as opposed to looking forward to where, you know, they can have an improved life, a healthier life, a more peaceful life, a more simpler life. But people will not move or leave an unhealthy relationship because of the amount of time that they've already spent with the other person. And so one of my first questions that I'll ask or just kind of put out there as food for thought is, okay, so you want to add another day on top of those years? You want to add another 6 months on top of those years? So now you want to make it 10 years and 3 months. Okay. You know, it's just to kind of get them to think about like, but listen to what you're saying. I understand about the time. You can't do anything about the past. You know, the time that you put in there, it's cool, but you want to keep putting more time in it now that you're aware of the situation that you're in and that the situation you're in is not one that you want to, you know, be in for the rest of your life. So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good way
to think about it.
It is. But I mean, I think that those, I mean, if you're in a long-term relationship though, where like being married or something like that, and I know that you might see that with certain people, the marriage vows, right? Like even though you're in a toxic relationship, people, I'm telling you, people will stay in that toxic relationship because of that vow that they made. Like seriously.
Yeah,
I know.
so that there was part, and they mean it.
And they mean it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
I get it. And that's okay if you're in a relationship with someone, with someone who is willing to do the work to improve, you know, the situation, to improve the relationship, to improve the environment, you know. But yeah, there are some people who literally will just say, hey, until death do us part. And it can be successfully done. It's just going to take a lot of strength and focus from the person who is aware of the unhealthy things that are going on, for them to just really get focused and do what they need to do to maintain, you know, what they say, keeping your head on your shoulders and stuff like that. You know, whether that means going to counseling or working with a therapist, you know, just to make sure that they aren't like slowly killing themselves on the inside by being attached to this person because they want to, you know, stick with their marriage and the vows. And I have seen it to where it does eventually, you know, turn around, because it's hard to be in an unhealthy relationship by yourself. You know, that other partner, that other spouse will eventually start seeing that, okay, this other person isn't giving me the response that they used to, or this act that I'm doing is not getting the response that I thought it would. So it becomes really, really boring and lonely when you don't have someone to kind of go back and forth with you like that. So some people can make it successful if they stick it out, but they have to, you know, be doing the work behind the scenes.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. Because like I said, I'm a big component of like people being married, but I'm a bigger component of people being equally submissive to each other. Because a lot of times it doesn't always go that same way where you have both people actually trying to make each other happy versus, a person, I guess, compromising their happiness for someone else. You know what I'm saying? Like that's completely different. And even with like toxic relationships like that, neither party should like try to like really compromise their own happiness, but instead just really try to work on like ways to make each other like somewhat equally happy. But again, the reality of that is sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But it's going to come down to the choices that you make as an individual, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like an individual operating in that relationship. Right. What two people want to do to actually make each other happy. But yeah, I mean, these the whole toxic relationship thing, so common. Like it is. It's a lot more common than some of the healthier relationships that I think of, because people get to a point where they wear these masks, like the mask of happiness, like, oh, we happy, but we're really not happy.
Oh yeah.
And that's starting to become a lot more common.
I guess the question is, who they wearing the mask for?
Themselves and others. Like seriously, themselves and others.
Everybody.
Like that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that's what it is. Because like I said, nobody wants to, like if you live this life, especially if you're in like a toxic relationship, if you live this public life where, you want to be that couple that stays together and want to be that couple that seems like you don't have any problems at all, and you live this social media lifestyle, right? Where it's like, oh, we can put up our best pictures, but once we get off social media, we, throwing TVs at each other. That's something that's totally different. I mean,
that's true.
It happens. You was gonna say something? I seen your lips.
Oh no, I was saying, yep.
You okay?
Yeah. Agreeing with you.
But like I said, it's so many levels to these types of relationships. But like I said, there's so many options for people that are in those relationships, and hopefully, people just take the opportunity to take those options to make things better.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all actually agreed on that part.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't want to go towards toxicity. Nah, it's a no for me.
I don't think none of us on that toxic level. Mm-hmm. We don't agree with that foolishness.
Mm-hmm.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Yeah. I think I was going to say something. No, I think you're right. Like I was going to say something, but I think I got that completely blacked out thing. I forgot exactly what I was going to actually say with that. But I think that'll be a good, point to end this particular episode. Another great episode of Adding Perspective with Josh. I'm Josh.
Self-work. I'm Coach Nrgy.
Aphrodite.
And I'm Emmanuel.